Okay, Chair, you are live.
Thank you. Welcome to the Planning Advisory and Adjustment Committee meeting of Monday, July 29th, 2024. And just prior to starting the meeting, I would like to read our Pembroke Land Acknowledgement Statement. As we gather today, I would respectfully acknowledge on behalf of Council and the community that the City of Pembroke resides on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We thank the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. It is with this statement that we honor and respect the Algonquins on whose land we reside. So I'll call the meeting to order, and can I have approval of the agenda, please? Moved by Ian, second by Marie-Josie. All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. Minutes of May the 27th have been distributed. I would ask for mover Ed, secondly Ian. Are there any errors or omissions to the minutes? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Do we have any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, under new business, I'm wondering if the committee would mind moving number D, A7 2024, up to the beginning, please, in that these two gentlemen are here and we don't have anybody else coming in for the rest. Is that okay with the committee? Okay, A7 2024, 135 Bell Street, Tyler Van Hoof. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to be the one doing this one.
Yeah.
So the applicant, Tyler Van Hoof, has submitted a site plan proposing the construction of a semi-detached dwelling house with 2 secondary dwelling units for a total of 4 dwelling units at 135 Bell Street. It's currently zoned R2, which allows for a semi-detached along with secondary units. 135 Bell Street meets and exceeds all required R2 provisions for a semi-detached except for lot frontage. The zoning bylaw requires a lot frontage of 65.6 feet and the existing lot frontage is 61 feet. So relief for a semi-detached is required in the amount of 4.6 feet. This lot frontage reduction can be considered minor in nature, and thus this application is strongly in keeping with the intent of the zoning bylaw. Regarding parking, the zoning bylaw requires a minimum of 2 spaces per dwelling unit and a single space per dwelling unit for the secondary units. So that means 6 parking spaces are required. And according to the submitted site plan, the development can accommodate the 6 required parking spaces. However, relief is required to allow these spaces to be in the form of 2 driveways with a width of 18 feet each. So the zoning bylaw states the width of a driveway can't exceed 30% the width of the lot or 20 feet, whichever is the lesser. Since 135 Bell Street has a frontage of 61 feet, this means a total driveway width of 18.3 feet is permitted. Therefore, the applicant is requesting relief of 17.7 feet to facilitate the 2 18-foot driveways. Further, the zoning bylaw states that the minimum distance between 2 separate driveways shall be 25 feet. The separation shown on the submitted site plan is 9 feet, 16 feet short of the requirement. However, we have approved these in the past to allow for the 2 driveways. So the property at 135 Bell Street is designated as residential. And under the official plan, the city shall encourage all forms of residential intensification, which creates a potential supply of new housing. And it's encouraged in built-up areas of the city where there is sufficient existing or planned infrastructure to accommodate such development. The proposed minor variance is in keeping with the direction of the official plan, as the proposed semi-detached with secondary dwelling units will contribute to intensifying housing stock in an already built-up area. So the proposed development is located within close proximity to 3 schools, Highview, Champlain, and Fellows. It's located within close proximity to Kinsman Park and Care for Health and Community Services. So the official plan also states that all residential developments shall be adequately serviced with municipal water and sewer and waste disposal, subject to verification that there is adequate capacity. So Bell Street currently has full water, sanitary, and storm servicing, and the requirement of a building permit to construct the semi will trigger the approval of the operations department to ensure adequate servicing capacity is there for the property. The provincial policy statement is met, whereby planning authorities shall provide for an appropriate range and mix of housing options and densities. And this application promotes intensification by increasing the number of dwelling units provided on the property. And therefore, this application is consistent with the current provincial policy statement. The relief requested can be considered minor in nature due to its minimal streetscape impact to the neighborhood. Directly across the street from 135 Bell Street is the Care For facility, and there is no driveways as this property has internal parking. Thus, the increase in driveway width would not impact that neighboring property. The proposed wider driveway can be viewed as desirable in the neighborhood and is able to accommodate more parking on the property since Bell Street is a no parking area on both sides. The operations department has commented that the proposed relief would not negatively impact their operations and that they do not register any opposition to the application. The planning department is recommending the approval of the minor variance to grant relief from lot frontage, parking area location on a lot, and the access requirements in order to allow for the addition of a second driveway on the property.
Thank you, Colleen. Were any submissions received regarding the application?
No submissions were received.
Good, thank you. And who would someone like to speak, Tyler, regarding the application?
This is our first time actually doing something like this, so I'm not actually even sure what we're supposed to say. By the sounds of it, it sounds like that it's going to go forward. I did speak to Owen earlier in the day about servicing, and I guess the comment from the city's planning or operations department was if the services were actually on the property itself, and we don't know that at this time. I'm not sure. Maybe if the operations department know that at this time. There was a comment about if we had to go out into the roadway to connect those services, that there might be a 3-year hold on that. Is that something that is still being considered, or?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So we're not sure where the services are. There are services on Bell Street for the property. So they would have to, Mr. Sally would have to have his engineer determine where the services are to be able to hook up to his proposed new development. That he wouldn't get a building permit until that's all been addressed. So we're looking, and you'll have to look into that if this is approved this evening to see where those services are in conjunction with the operations department.
So the minor variance would allow for the building to proceed, but the building permit would then cover off the services. Is that correct? And then I heard a comment about our engineer.
Yes, you'd have to provide servicing plans of how it's going to be serviced, so that you're going to have to provide plans to where that servicing is. If the city doesn't have that plan where the ends are, then you'll have to have an engineer provide that information. And that would be part of your building plans.
Okay, I'm just not sure how servicing, because my understanding was there was a building there before.
Okay, and that's probably like we're getting kind of ahead of ourselves. Okay. Like we're just dealing today with the lot frontage, the driveway width, and then the distance between the two driveways. So we could talk about servicing.
Okay, so that would be more of a discussion with the operations department.
Exactly.
Just trying to figure out the process. So
yeah.
Committee members, are there any? Yes, Ed.
Just a question. Welcome, gentlemen. Good to see new growth in the community. We always like that. My concern maybe, and I just want to see how you would feel. Are you comfortable with the parking? We're looking at 4 units. Most people have 2 vehicles in a household these days. Is there any issue with parking or moving around vehicles or site infractions, et cetera, for the safety of the community? That's the reason I'm asking.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, in regards to the site plan, there is 40, almost 42 feet of driveway length. So that can definitely accommodate the two cars, one behind the other.
Okay.
The third vehicle, because at 18 feet, they only have to be, each vehicle has driveway width has to be 9 feet. So it meets so typically 4 cars could fit on each driveway.
So we could fit up to 8 cars within the 4.
That's right.
Proposal.
But according to the zoning bylaw, the accessory dwelling units, so the additional dwelling unit, the one that's in the basement, only requires 1 parking space. And it can be in tandem, so meaning it can be parked behind another vehicle.
Okay.
Okay.
Comfortable with that. Thanks.
Yes, Ian.
So I'm going to move that we accept the recommendation. I like that we, I guess Councillor Jackno and I are in tow together tonight. I like that we looked at the frontage situation as opposed to reducing the number of parking spots. I would rather us be doing it this way than saying, well, we'll forgive 1 parking spot. Generally speaking, on Bell Street, I mean, it's certainly one of our main roads. There's all kinds of very large properties. This one's not going to be entirely out of character like it would be on maybe some more residential streets. The fact that it's as far as I can tell, the front yard is going to be mostly driveway. Again, we have multiple schools, we have the hospital, we have other things, so it's not going to be out of character. But I did want to make the comment that I would rather us give up yard frontage in favor of making sure there's enough parking spots than doing it the opposite and reducing the number of parking spots, because I think maybe we've gotten a little bit bitten by that in the past.
Do I have a seconder to? Yes. Good, thank you. Yes, Romeo.
Well, I just want to comment on the application. I think that years ago, this wouldn't go. This would not go in any way. But in view of the fact that the province has brought forth regulations and recommendations of intensification, which means filling in all the empty spots where we can, I think that we're experiencing applications like yours with minor little variances, little things that we have to massage in order to get the properties up there. I live close to Bell Street. I know the spot exactly where you're going, and you're the first duplex in the block from the K Street down to River Road, and I'm wondering if there'll be others down the road that'll do the same thing, because there are a few homes there that maybe will be renovated down the road and they'll create duplexes. So I have no problem with the application, but having been around quite a while, I know this wouldn't have gone 10, 15 years ago. But good to see you taking the initiative and the energy to fill in some of these places, because we need homes and we need these kind of accommodations. So just putting in the positive word.
Any further comments? I call a question. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.
Our next is B5 2024 1106 Boundary Road, Danny Cargus.
Where are you going to? K Street?
Huh?
Which one?
B5. Boundary Road?
Okay.
Yeah, well, we did the for D first, and I'm going down.
K Street.
Huh?
Oh, you're moving the K Street down below?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Let's back up a little.
We'll put before.
Oh, wait, okay.
Yeah. Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay, let's do B4 2024 and Z-8 2024, 960 McKay Street, Taylor Gagne. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Owen, yes.
Thank you. The applicant, Taylor Gagne, has submitted concurrent applications for consent to sever and a zoning bylaw amendment for a portion of a property currently known as 0 McKay Street. The applicant would like to have a separate property to develop a wedding event center on, which falls under the zoning bylaw's definition of a place of assembly. The existing property of 0 McKay Street is currently zoned General Industrial M1 by the zoning bylaw. This zoning does not include a place of assembly as a permitted use, hence the primary requirement for a zoning bylaw amendment. As the property is located in an area surrounded by other M1 zoning, to maintain this consistency, a site-specific M1 zone, M1-13, is proposed. The primary relief required to be granted under the site-specific zoning being that place of assembly is added as a permitted use in addition to other general M1 provisions. The proposed severed lot, which would be known as 960 McKay Street, would have a frontage of approximately 360 feet, an approximate depth of 508 feet, and an approximate area of 4.19 acres. This would be zoned General Industrial -13 by the concurrent zoning bylaw amendment. All general provisions for a lot in an M1 zone are met and or exceeded, including those minimums for lot area and lot frontage. The proposed building on the proposed severed lot also meets and exceeds all general provisions for an M1 zone, including minimums for front yard setback, rear yard setback, exterior side yard setback, interior side yard setback, and minimum landscaped open space. The proposed severed lot is surrounded by M1 zoning on 3 sides, making the proposed zoning compatible within the area. On the 4th side to the south is a former rail corridor that is currently zoned open space OS. The proposed use of a wedding event center is highly compatible with this zoning, as it would not cause any issues of odor, dust, vibration, etc. that may occur from other M1 uses. Further, this use would be considered only a Class 1 use, which requires a buffer of only 70 meters to any sensitive land uses, such as residential uses, and there are none of these uses within 70 meters of the proposed severed lot. On the submitted site plan, the proposed parking area is shown in the exterior side yard along McKay Street. However, the zoning bylaw requires that in industrial zones, parking is permitted in interior side yard and rear yards only. As such, further site-specific relief is requested to allow for the applicant's desired parking configuration. Ms. Gagne proposes a vegetation buffer between the proposed parking area and McKay Street to screen the parking area from view and to meet the intent of this zoning provision. Further regarding parking, the zoning bylaw requires that each parking area and driveway connecting the parking area with a street shall be paved with an asphalt or concrete surface. The applicant is requesting that relief be granted from this provision under the site-specific zoning to allow for a proposed parking area to be constructed of gravel. The driveways connecting the proposed parking area to the street and the proposed building would be paved with asphalt. The planning department is recommending that this requested relief specifically not be granted. The parking surface area provision sets a basic aesthetic standard for larger developments, and it has generally not been viewed as too onerous a requirement for past applications and developments. Reasonable concerns should be noted that a precedent may be set for future developments, not only in the city's industrial parks, but also for any developments within city limits that this provision would apply to. It is therefore the planning department's view that this relief would not be desirable in the neighborhood, nor the city of Pembroke as a whole. For the proposed place of assembly building, which is 440 square meters, the zoning bylaw would require 44 parking spaces, and the proposed site plan shows this being met and exceeded with 56 parking spaces provided. It should be noted that the proposed development on the proposed severed lot would be subject to a site plan agreement being approved by the city, which would further ensure that all landscaping, parking, servicing, drainage, environmental site assessment, and geotechnical study requirements are met. The proposed retained lot, which would continue to be known as 0 McKay Street, would have a frontage of 632.59 feet an irregular depth of approximately 454 feet, and an approximate area of 6.89 acres. This lot would continue to maintain its M1 zoning. All requirements for a lot in an M1 zone would continue to be met and exceeded, including those minimums for lot area and lot frontage for this proposed retained lot. At this time, there are no development proposals submitted for this lot, so it would continue to be vacant land. Regarding the official plan, the proposed severed lot is designated industrial, and this designation specifies that the predominant use in the area so designated shall be for industrial uses, and certain other compatible uses are permitted, including service in industrial uses. The official plan carries on that council will support the protection of existing employment areas, and this application being located in an existing employment area maintains this status, so that meets that objective of the official plan. Regarding vehicular traffic, while the portion of McKay Street along the property is actually designated a local road by Schedule B of the official plan, I think we all know in actual effect and practice, this portion of McKay Street provides a direct vehicular link to Pembroke Street East and Highway 148, as well as it's in a prime location to provide connection to Highway 17 via collector roads. This places the location of the proposed wedding and events center ideally in terms of receiving clients and guests from outside of the city of Pembroke, and serves as an entry point for these guests to the city itself. The provincial policy statement states that planning authorities shall promote economic development and competitiveness by providing an appropriate range and mix of employment uses to meet long-term needs, by providing opportunities for a diversified economic base, by facilitating the conditions for economic investment, by identifying strategic sites for investment, and by ensuring that the necessary infrastructure is provided to support current and projected needs. And as the proposed use will continue to contribute to a range of employment opportunities in an employment area and will diversify the local economic base for investment. And as the necessary infrastructure exists, these applications are directly in line with the current provincial policy statement. As such, the planning department is recommending the approval of the concurrent consent to sever and zoning bylaw amendment applications for 960 McKay Street, subject to, for the severance, that the severed lot be subject to a 2% parkland dedication fee, and that a registered plan of survey depicting the severed lands be supplied to the secretary treasurer of this committee.
Thank you, Owen. Were any submissions received regarding this application, Owen?
No submissions nor informational inquiries were received.
Good, thank you very much. Seeing no one to respond other from the audience, I'd ask for a motion, please. Yes, Ian.
I have a question.
I'm sorry, a question, okay.
So Ms. Gagné is not available today, is that right?
Through you, Mr. Chair, unfortunately, no, she's not available tonight.
So she has read your report about and knows about the driveway request being not part of the approval?
We've been in touch with Ms. Gagné over several issues to do with the application. So I don't know if she's aware of that recommendation specifically.
Okay.
Yes, Ian.
I'm going to move that we approve both applications, the severance application pursuant to the two items that Mr. Hutton just said, and that we approve the other recommendation. But I'm not going to agree with the asphalt driveway. My motion would be that she be permitted to maintain what I'm guessing is the gravel parking lot.
So that's included in the motion?
Yes.
Seconder?
I just want to make sure, can you repeat your motion?
Yes.
That everything the planning department has recommended, except that I would permit the gravel parking lot. I believe the recommendation from the planning department was that be paved. So I am disregarding that one to allow for a gravel parking lot. And then I have comments after the fact.
Do we have a second or first of all to the motion?
No, I wish to.
Okay.
Oh, wait, has it been seconded yet?
No.
No.
Seeing none.
Well, then can I go ahead with my comments then?
Yes.
I think it's pretty rich for the city of Pembroke to require this business to have an asphalt parking lot when the city of Pembroke itself has nothing but gravel parking lots down at Riverside Park, has gravel parking lots at our waterfront, has gravel parking lots at Pemice too. But we're going to turn around, and we almost did this with another one earlier this term, the one out, the storage locker one. I mean, we're talking about aesthetic pleasure. There's going to be some sort of, I don't know if she's planning on planting bushes or hedges or whatnot. You're out in the middle of an industrial zone. If we're going to talk about aesthetics, I don't think this part of McKay Street is going to win any awards for aesthetics. So I don't know why we wouldn't grant that relief, particularly in this location. Like I said, I mean, we talk about how beautiful our waterfront is. We talk about how beautiful Riverside Park is. We as a city don't have a problem that they're all gravel parking lots. I'm not aware of any problems that have come from those gravel parking lots. So I don't know why we would stick this on her. I don't get what the problem is.
Further comments? Yeah, Romeo?
Well, Councillor Yee kind of has convinced me with a particular comment there, which I hadn't thought of. The only thing I can think of with the planning department wanting having a paved parking lot is because it's a private enterprise. It's a individual ownership. And if ever Gully Street, I didn't know what was the name of that thing, Gully Drive, is ever paved, and then requiring someone on the private owners on the private owned property to pave the parking lot after the fact, I think is a little rich on the part of the city, if you look at it that way. On the other hand, I know we've got the city at Pemice 2 down at Riverside Park. We've got gravel parking lots, but if ever council in its wisdom decide that they have enough money to pave these areas, then they don't have to go through a lot of red tape. They just go ahead and do it. In this particular case, if this parking lot is not paved, then it would be a little bit more difficult to get it done at that time. So in a way, I'm prepared to second your motion if you can bring it back with a new comma or a period. And because we're having an individual who's going to be putting out a certain amount of capital here and building an edifice, which I think there is a need in this community. In matter of fact, there are a few that have built outside of our community that are doing quite well. I don't know why we don't get in on it. And so I just felt that I should present my comments at this time that way. I was opposed to your motion, but now I'm prepared to support.
Yes. Marie, Josie?
Okay. My original comment was just to make sure that the applicant understood the conditions that the city intended. I see there's a debate about the asphalt versus no asphalt. In the report, concerns were expressed about setting a precedent. I would like to hear comments from the planner on the specific concerns and the implications long-term of a decision, one way or another.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Well, I can't speak to specifically Riverside Park and Parkland. Those facilities are in an open space zone. What we're talking about here is developments in the industrial park, and a drive-through of the neighborhood was performed prior to this meeting, and the vast majority of lots in that area were in some way paved, from Westburn Electric property, Sunbelt property, Valley Transportation, Cassidy's, All of these properties in the surrounding area are paved. We are concerned that if relief is granted to one particular development, that would set a precedent going forward. And we don't think that in terms of our industrial park and even beyond into the rest of the city, we don't think that is a good precedent to set.
I really wish the applicant was here tonight. My original concern was, if she is not aware of this condition, how is that impacting her decision to go forward with the business? And therefore, is this material to the decision tonight?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, the applicant has expressed already that she does not intend at this time to go through with this development. She has found an alternate site for her business. As she has already paid the fees and we were past the applicable refund period, she wanted the applications to go ahead in case she should decide in the future to come back to this location and explore it as a permanent option. But that being said, we would be particularly concerned if, with this particular development proposal removed, if that relief was granted and just attached to this site in general for any industrial use to come into the site, and have relief being granted for exterior side yard and parking and exterior side yard, and for it to be gravel.
So essentially, you're saying that we're having this discussion for a project that is unlikely to go ahead. And I would say we should table this application, since this is not going to result in a project.
Roman. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Even though she has pulled it, the near future, this will not be developed. We don't know that it won't be developed, and she would like to proceed.
Okay.
This was ran by her, and she did wish to proceed.
Yes. Up first, I think Romeo, and then
Go ahead.
Okay. Ian.
So just taking a look at Google Maps, in terms of what did we look at when we did the drive-by? Because Sunbelt Rentals has a small paved portion, but their yard and everything is not paved. Valley Transportation's yard is not paved, but there's a front part in front of their office that is. Purelator, technically on Cecilia Street, but one road over, is not paved. So what are we, in terms of the answer to the precedent setting, a lot of stuff out here is in fact not paved, other than their front area. And my understanding is that the plan for this one was that the front drive-in and that was going to be paved, just not the parking lot.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, those are required parking spaces that are paved. So the required parking spaces for this particular one would be 44. So what they did was when you have an industrial use, like a warehouse and things like that, there's not much parking required. So that's why they're smaller parking, because they're just basically for the staff and for their clients. It doesn't have to be for the back part for the larger vehicles that they're like Sunbelt's renting or whatever. So it's the required parking spaces that have to be paved.
But if I'm driving through and I'm looking at aesthetics, which is what the report commented on, how am I going to be looking differently at aesthetics of, Valley Transportation or Cassidy's? Most of Cassidy's yard is not paved. I'm not going to drive down the road and think, gosh, what a bunch of ugly asphalt or gravel areas. But thank God that Cassidy's has a little portion paved in front of it. I don't know if this was a different area of town, if she was moving her business into, over off a Boundary Road and Hillside, that nice, wonderful, giant piece of land that's still there, or frankly, even if she was off the highway in our beautiful Transcan Park, I might think something differently, but if we're talking about looking, what my understanding of this committee is supposed to do is look at the neighborhood in general. I mean, I'm not convinced that that is a make it or break it precedence for this one.
Yes, thank you. Romeo.
To add to the comments, Councillor Ian, the recycling place that's on Bennett Street, we've had plans for them. That I don't know how long it's going to take for them to follow up on their plans. There's been changes, but how much of their particular yard in the front is paved? When you go into that recycling place, I don't think there's anything. So that is the one area. The second point I wanted to make, the parking runs parallel to McKay Street. Between the parking and McKay Street, there's a buffering zone. Would you even be able to see if it's paved or if it's gravel? I don't know that, depending on the height of the buffering zone. So the buffering zone is required.
Owen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Regarding the 2 and 10 Bennett Street, we do have a site plan agreement in for a new recycling facility, and it will be, the front of it will be fully paved. So I think the thing to keep in mind here is that the surrounding areas of this subject property around it, most of those are old existing industrial properties. But we're talking about a new development that in theory is supposed to meet our current standards, including the zoning bylaw and including standards set out under our site plan agreement process. And I think with that, I'll leave that respectfully to the committee.
Ian.
Just 2 final points. Vice Chairperson Levisser, I mean, it was spoken earlier that some of those other examples, those are side yards or rear yards or whatnot. If this address was on Gully Street instead of McKay Street, which they're not even using an access from McKay Street, like their front door and driveway is going to be off Gully, well, then this would be a side yard. I mean, the only reason we're calling this a front yard parking lot is because I guess we as the city have decided that its address is McKay Street, but in reality, its address should probably be Gully Street because that's where things are coming in. And now I think I forgot my other point. But that's, yeah. So to me, this is being used as a side yard. And God, the other point I thought was really good too. And now it's just totally slipped my mind. But yeah, it's, I don't know. There's that. The other one. So its direct competitor to this wedding event, whatnot, is going to be the Farmstead, which is just a little further down the road. And if anybody has been there, you're parking on a front yard grass.
Yeah.
They don't have any paving anywhere. You are parking in the front yard and you're parking, frankly, on the front yard grass. So, I mean, if we're going to talk about competitive advantage and whatnot and wanting to maybe woo some people a little further down McKay Street into our economic area instead of that of our neighboring municipality, again, I would just point out that when you go to the Farmstead, you're parking on grass, and we're in an argument right now about asphalt versus pavement or gravel.
Marcel?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, I don't think this would be an issue if this was not parking. If the gentleman or the lady was going to just pave the entrance and like Councillor Keel was saying about the other ones in the neighborhood, this area is going to be all parking. It's not going to be just parking in front of the building for 5 or 6 cars or a couple of trucks. The area is calling for parking of vehicles. The whole thing. If you don't park an area like that, it becomes a real mess. If you look at some of the ones that they're talking about, go and take a look at their parking areas that are, i.e. the grass. I don't want to set a precedent by saying we will let this one go. That's what I feel.
Sure. Ed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I were getting married over again, which I won't be, I'm very, very happy. And I hope my wife is watching this on YouTube. I just want to comment If I was a bride and a bunch of bridesmaids who had spent thousands of dollars on a dress on a rainy day, and that venue was there in a mud-filled pit, I wouldn't be too happy, getting out of a vehicle where you're picking up mud and grime, and even on a dusty day. I think from the aesthetics of having it paid for the customer is a wonderful thing. I'm not trying to pin the cost on the individual, but I think from the perspective of promoting the area, saying, look, we've got a wonderful venue here for your wedding, and don't worry about it raining, because you can walk right in. Maybe your shoes will get a little wet, but you don't have to worry about your $6,000 or $10,000 wedding dress, being a mess. I look at that from a practical standpoint. And I also have a bit of an issue about where this is going to be. It's an industrial area. I'm open to change. I'm open to, following the Provincial Planning Act. Is this the right spot for this particular venue? And the other thing is, the individual's not here. And I think really, some of these things we're talking about, they should be exposed to in the conversation to make sure that, if we proceed, that it's all the ducks are in order. That's just what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Further, yes, Ian.
I move that we table this to the next meeting.
Seconded by Ed. All in favor of tabling? Motion is tabled. Thank you.
Just a comment, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Maybe by the next meeting, Owen will be able to tell us if the lady will proceed or not proceed. If she proceeds, then of course we readdress it. If she's not going to proceed, we can leave it tabled till such time as something comes up.
Okay. Is that okay? Thank you. Okay, we move to B5 2024 1106 Boundary Road. Danny Cargus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant, Mr. Danny Cargus, has submitted an application for consent to sever from his existing property at 1108 Boundary Road to create a new additional lot for future residential development. The existing property is zoned residential type 2 by the zoning bylaw. Currently, a single detached dwelling and a detached garage exist on the property. Mr. Cargus proposes to maintain these buildings and uses on the retained lot, with the severed lot being solely vacant land until such a time that a development proposal is brought forward for the new lot. The retained lot, which would maintain the civic address of 1108 Boundary Road, would have an approximate frontage of 88 feet, an irregular depth of 215 feet, and a lot area of approximately 14,810 square feet. This proposed retained lot would maintain the R2 zoning, and all requirements for a single detached dwelling in an R2 zone would continue to be met and exceeded, including those minimums for lot area, frontage, front yard setback, rear yard setback, interior side yard setback, and lot depth. The proposed severed lot, which would be assigned the civic address of 1106 Boundary Road, would have an approximate frontage of 71 feet, an irregular depth of 215 feet, and a lot area of approximately 14,810 square feet. This proposed severed lot would also maintain its R2 zoning, and for this lot, all requirements for a lot in an R2 zone are met and exceeded, including those minimums for lot area, frontage, and depth. The zoning bylaw requires 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit for single detached dwellings. Ample existing driveway space on the retained lot would continue to accommodate the required parking for the existing single detached dwelling. Parking requirements for the severed lot would be dealt with upon receiving a site plan for any future development. As both the proposed retained and severed lots meet and exceed all applicable R2 provisions, as well as applicable parking provisions, this application meets all applicable requirements of the zoning bylaw. Regarding the official plan, the property is designated residential, and the residential designation states that the City of Pembroke will encourage all forms of residential intensification to create a potential supply of new housing units. This shall be encouraged in built-up areas of the city where there is sufficient existing or planned infrastructure. as the proposed severance will allow for a new lot to be created for future residential development within an already built-up area with existing servicing. This application strongly meets this directive of the official plan. The official plan further states that all residential development shall be adequately serviced with municipal water and sewer services. And the existing single detached dwelling on the retained lot is currently on municipal water and sanitary sewer services, and these same services would be available for the severed lot. Any future development of this lot would be subject to a building permit being applied for, the application process for which would require municipal servicing to be completed. The property is located half a kilometer from Pembroke Street West, the city's designated arterial road by the official plan. This provides for strong vehicular transportation links throughout the city via its collector roads. And regarding the provincial policy statement, the existing single detached dwelling and future residential development would contribute to a healthy, livable, and safe community by promoting efficient land use patterns that will sustain the financial well-being of the city of Pembroke over the long term. Just a note that a 5% parkland dedication fee would be required to be paid as a condition of the severance, along with a plan of survey being submitted to the Secretary Treasurer of this committee. With those conditions stated, the Planning Department is recommending that the committee approve the application for consent to sever for 1106 Boundary Road.
Thank you, Owen. Were there any submissions received regarding this application?
No submissions nor inquiries were. We received a comment from the County of Renfrew. They would like it noted that both the proposed retained and severed lots abut the Algonquin Trail, which is a mixed-use trail, and as such, there may be effects of dust and noise from the use of said trail.
Sure. Comments? Yes, Ian.
Well, apart from the County of Renfrew admitting that they might be causing a nuisance on our properties from their property.
Yeah.
If I was them, I probably wouldn't have said that. The parkland dedication fee of 5%, that's in lieu of us taking actual land, correct? Have we just automatically done that, or did we discuss that with the owner? So I'm assuming this is at the end of Douglas Street and Boundary Road. Where we do have, I think, a little bit of a road allowance coming through, and where this could potentially be a nice touchdown area for people coming off of the trail. Did we look at all as to whether or not we could actually just take a little bit of land instead of the 5% that I think we usually do?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. We're in discussions with the Director of Operations, and there is a touchdown area being proposed off Forest Road. So that would be the area where people could park and get on the trail and go from there. So that's, we didn't consider it because it's so close to the Forest Road one.
Okay, this is a better spot in my opinion.
Further comments? Can we have a motion? Moved by Marcel, seconded by Ed. Any further comments? All in favor of the motion? Opposed, carried. Thank you very much. A624, 168 Cecil Street, Bruce McGuire.
That's me.
Mm-hmm.
So the applicant,
Your
Mr. McGuire, has submitted a site plan for the extension of his driveway on his property at 168 Cecil Street. He would like to extend the width of his driveway to line up with his existing shed, as you can see on the site plan. So the existing driveway is approximately 20 feet wide, and the proposed addition to the driveway would be 12 feet. The zoning bylaw zones the property as R2, but it states that parking areas shall be permitted in all yards, provided the width of the driveway shall not exceed 30% the width of the lot, or 20 feet, whichever is the lesser. As 168 Cecil Street has a frontage of 120 feet along Douglas Street, a total frontage width of 20 feet is permitted. So the applicant is asking for relief of the 12 feet to facilitate his proposed driveway addition. The relief can be considered minor in nature due to the minimal streetscape impact in the neighborhood. Directly across the street from the driveway at 168 Cecil Street, there are no driveways as this property is owned by Renfrew County Housing. And the property has internal parking, thus the increase in driveway would not impact that neighboring property. The proposed wider driveway can be viewed as desirable within the neighborhood as able to accommodate more parking on the property as opposed to on-street. And that's particularly pertinent as Douglas can be a busy street. The operations department has commented that the proposed relief would not negatively impact their operations and that they do not register any opposition to the application. Property is designated as residential, and the official plan also states it intended that the parking capacity in the city shall be increased to satisfy anticipated increasing traffic volumes and parking needs arising from new development. So the proposed extended driveway at 168 Cecil would directly meet the aim of the official plan. It meets with the provincial policy statement, so the planning department is recommending the approval of the minor variance to grant relief to allow for a 12-foot addition to the existing 20-foot driveway.
Thank you, Colleen. Were there any submissions regarding this application?
There were no submissions.
No submissions. Thank you. Comments? If not, then
I'll propose to accept the recommendation from the planning department.
Seconded by Ian. Any further comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Past decisions update. Want to say that, Owen? Yes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So at this committee's last meeting of the 27th of May, 3 applications were heard. The first 2 being one for consent to sever for 919 Cedar Lane, and the second being a minor variance for 432 Pembroke Street West. These 2 applications have successfully passed their appeal periods, and the provisional consent is granted and the minor variance is considered final. The third application, a zoning bylaw amendment for 336 Patricia Avenue, following this committee's recommendation, went along to a public meeting of council on June 4th. A bylaw was passed on July 16th, and that is currently within its applicable 20-day appeal period, the final day of appeal being the 8th of August.
Thank you. Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, August the 26th, 2024. Everybody happy with that? Okay. Motion to adjourn? Okay. Yeah, good. Thank you.
2 decisions.